Tonight's object was originally discovered sometime before 1654 by Giovanni Bautista Odierna, and he described it as a nebulous patch. It's a open cluster, and when observing it tonight, it definitely felt a little bit nebulous between the stars. Looking at some of the images online, though, it doesn't. I don't really see a whole lot of nebulosity going on there, so I'm not sure if this was a trick of the eye or what. But I did sketch it in based on what I was observing, and nudging the telescope, shaking it a little bit, it felt to me like that nebulosity stayed put. So I don't know what it was. Anyway, starting out with the placement of the primary stars here, I noticed a very distinct Y shape to begin with. So I placed those four stars and then began plotting out the rest of them from there. I'm using the Diatramentus white ink again in this cheapo Jinhao fountain pen for the placements, and this ink was diluted down. So this is like 1 part ink to 10 parts water. And that's really just to sort of help get the more subtleness of some of these lighter stars. I'll go back in later on with the fully concentrated ink to brighten up the primaries. As far as gear for the night, I was using my Skywatcher 10-inch Dob for the observing, and I had the Batter Zoom eyepiece in, which goes between 8 millimeters and 24 millimeters. I think most of my sketching for the evening was done around 16 or 20 millimeters. With the moon still around 80% full in the night sky, it was definitely pretty hazy. I mean, there was a just like an overcast grayness to everything, which didn't make it super easy to pick out all the subtle details within the globular. Um, but you make do, and you just take a little bit more time to try and focus on stuff and see what you can see. It was fortunate though that right now Auriga is pretty high in the sky. It's just underneath zenith, so there wasn't a whole lot of atmosphere that I had to point the telescope through, which made it a little bit helpful. You know, Using a Dob though and pointing it near zenith presents its own challenges. So I ended up over the course of, I don't know, I think it was about 45 minutes or so for this sketch. I ended up having to shuffle my stool and the sketching um, platform that I have probably like three quarters of the way around the whole telescope at one point. So switching over now that I put all the star placements in, like I said, as I was putting in all these dots, I was noticing that there was definitely a very distinct haze around. There was sort of like a gap around the V part of the Y, but then all around that was sort of like a mottled cloudiness. And so, in order to try and mimic the mottledness of what I was seeing, I thought that it'd be nice to, instead of smearing on all of the Conte here, I stippled it on with the idea that if I stippled it enough through here to just get the general shape and feel, then smoothing it out afterwards hopefully would kind of provide a feeling of that nebulosity, but also kind of the patchiness that I was seeing. Um, Here I also just started just taking it and very lightly doing sort of these S shapes and stuff around to kind of keep some of the negative spaces and just gum it up a little bit. Because it is a nebulous thing that I was looking at, it was difficult to see with the lights of the sketching page there. So I turned everything off for a little bit and let my eyes just for a few minutes. Observed, tried to kind of see where they were in relationship to the stars that I had sketched in, and then got back to it. I think, like it's always a balance between trying to create accurate, you know, placement of everything, as well as not having to be forced into like that dictating everything. So as I was going through here, I got the general feel of it, and then I was trying to just kind of make sure that I also paid attention to the composition on the page so that it wasn't feeling like all I was doing was copying one to one. And once I got the general feel in here, I used the other side of the smudge tool, the clean one, the clean side, to just, with the side of it, lightly brush everything down, try and get it into that, the value range that I was looking for. Still, so far, I mean, playing with the smudge tool and trying to get these nebulous forms in here, for me, it's always been a little bit of a crapshoot whether or not it works out. Um, I'm still trying to figure out how to really, make it do exactly what I want it to do. And so sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Tonight I was feeling pretty good. Overall, it felt like what I wanted it to look like. So that was great, especially because in the last two nights before this, I was trying my hand at more of a long form drawing, and it was exhausting. I tried the first night just to really be super accurate about placing all the stars in the right spot, and ended up drawing for about an hour, just placing stars and then erasing them, shifting the position a little bit, placing it again. And by the end of that, I was exhausted. Like I didn't even want to look at the sky anymore. So I went to bed, and with the plan of coming back out the next night to place more of the more subtle stars, and to really finish things off. And I got out there and I started going at it again, and it was just no fun. It was like exhausting trying to place all of these stars exactly in the right spot. So after about 2 hours of sketching and trying all that stuff, I just gave up and trashed it. And so this is the first drawing kind of coming out of that and being like, screw it. I really want to just explore having fun again, and placing things a little bit faster, and really just getting a general vibe that I wanted. So overall, I think things were working pretty well in the sketch at this point. So a little bit more observing, just making sure that everything is feeling like it's in the right spot. And then I started thinking about kind of really highlighting some of those primary stars. So I ended up grabbing the fountain pen that had the full undiluted ink in here, and just hitting up a couple of the primaries a little bit more, going back and forth between the eyepiece and just checking it to see if it felt like it was about in the right value and composition. Yeah, the more that I was staring at the object sort of at the end of the sketch here, the more I was realizing too that I wanted to, just make sure that I was hitting that nebulous feeling in the right spots throughout. I was also seeing a couple of places where I just needed to uh, either brighten up some of the stars, or I think that at this point I actually zoomed in to the like all the way in on to 8 millimeters on the batter, and started to notice a few more really subtle stars within the cluster. So I ended up spending a little bit of time here, just kind of populating all of those the really faint ones that I wasn't seeing at. I think that in general I was focused around 20 millimeters um, on this sketch, but then when I zoomed into 8, there was definitely a lot more that I could parse out. I've been doing a lot of my sketching without drawing in kind of the circle that delineates the shape of the eyepiece. But I've been kind of missing it a little bit. So for this sketch, I decided to go in and grab a bowl, and that was about accurate to the size that I was look of the eyepiece I was looking through, and just sketch that down as well. Oops, missed a little bit of a circle there. So yeah, the sketch is pretty much done now. Throwing in the directional marker and calling it a night for this one. I was particularly happy with the sketch in terms of just how the nebula stuff came through, the nebulosity through there. Felt pretty accurate to what I was seeing. So it's always nice when that happens. It's also really cool to look back at the drawing that I did a year ago in 2024 here on the left side and seeing kind of where I've gone since then. It's been quite a journey so far, and I'm really looking forward to the next year of continuing to sketch and continuing to learn more stuff and trying out different techniques.